We use the digits 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 in our number system, so all of our numbers are made up of a combination of these digits. In ancient Rome they used Roman numerals, so I stood for 1, V stood for 5, X for 10, L for 50 and C for 100, and they combined these letters to form other numbers. So for 2 they wrote I, so 2 I's stood for 2 ones. For 3 they wrote 3 I's. 7 they thought of as being 5 and 1 and 1, so that was V, I. 8 was 1 more than 7, so that's 3 I's after V. 20 they thought of as being 2 tens, so they wrote XX. And 30 they thought of as being 3 tens, so they wrote XXX for 30. Now for the number 4, they thought of 4, rather than writing 4 I's, they thought of 4 as being 1 before 5, so they wrote I before V. For 6 they thought of as 1 after 5, so they wrote V and then I. For the number 9, they thought of 9 as being 1 before 10, so they wrote IX. 11 they thought of as being 1 after 10, so they wrote X and then an I after the X. 40 they thought of as 10 before 50, so they wrote XL. And 60 is 10 after 50, so they wrote LX. For 70, 70 is 50 and 2 tens, so they wrote LXX. 80 is 50 and 3 tens, so they wrote LXXX. And 90, rather than writing L and 4 X's, they thought of 90 as being 10 before 100, so they wrote X before C. So let's have a think about how we can make these numbers in Roman numerals. So for 12 we have 1 10 and 2 ones. So our 1 10 can be represented by X and our 2 ones by 2 I's. 14 is 10, so X, and remember 4, they thought of the number 4 as 1 before 5, so they have an X to represent the 10 and then an I before a V to represent the 4. 16 is XVI. The X represents the 10, the V and the I represent the 6 because V is 5 and I is 1. Now for 19, they have XIX. The X is for the 10 and the IX is for the 9 because 9 is 1 before 10, so I before X represents that 9. For 23, we have 2 10s and 3 ones, so 2 X's and 3 I's. And for 25, we have 2 10s and a 5, so 2 X's and a V. Now you might want to pause the video and see if you can make these numbers in Roman numerals. So for 34, 30 is 3 tens, so 3 x's. 4 is 1 before 5, so I before v. So we have 3 x's and then I before v. Now for 38, again we have 3 tens, so 3 x's. And for the number 8, we have 5 and 3 ones. So we have 3 x's to represent the 30, and then a v and 3 i's to represent 8, because v is 5 and I is 1. Now for 39, again we have 3 tens, so 3 x's. And remember that 9 is 1 before 10, so I before x. So we have 3 x's for the 30, and then I before x for the 9. Now 42, remember for 40 we don't have 4 x's, we never have 4 of any one letter in a row. 40 is 10 before 50. So we make the 40 with x and then l, and the 2 is 2 i's. So we have x, l, I. For 44, again we have 10 before 50, so x before l to make the 40, and then the 4, remember that 4 is 1 before 5, so I before v. XL makes the 40, IV makes the 4. Now we have 49. Now you might think 49 is 1 before 50, but the Romans worked out each number separately. So they wrote the number for 40 and then they wrote the number for 9. So 40 is 10 before 50, so XL. And then 9 is 1 before 10, so IX. Now moving on to larger numbers, we have 55, so L is 50 and V is 5. 59, so L is 50 and IX is 1 before 10, which is 9. For 64, remember 60 is 10 after 50, so we have an L and then we have an X to represent that 60, and 4 is 1 before 5, so we have IV. LX is 60, IV is 4. Now for 76, we have LXX, because 70 is 50 and then 2 tens, and 6 is 1 after 5, so V and then I. Now 89, to get the 80, we have 50 and then 3 tens, so LXXX, and then 9 is 1 before 10, so I before X. Now we have 94. Now remember, we can't have 4 of any single letter in a row, so that 90, rather than being 50 and 4 tens, is just 10 before 100, so that's X before C. And then 4 is 1 before 5, so I before V.